Everyone is talking about AI. At IU, we are too. In this segment of AI and You, we will talk with Dr. Alan R. Dennis from the Kelley School of Business, Bloomington. I'm your host, Kevin Jones.
From the Indiana Public Media Met Studio on the campus of Indiana University, this is State of Inquiry, a video podcast series of expert-led conversations highlighting the impact of IU research. In this season, Dr. Kevin Jones guides us through AI and You, navigating the new frontier. Over the course of 4 episodes, speaking with experts, innovators, and everyday people, reshaping what we know and how we live. Dr. Jones is an AI strategist at IU Columbus and a thought leader and educator with over 30 years of experience empowering workforces and integrating innovative technologies ethically. He has served as leader of the 2024 Indiana University Generative AI Task Force and a panel moderator of the World Summit AI Conference. I'm Eddie Stewart. This is episode 3 of 4 of AI and You, Navigating the New Frontier.
So we are incredibly fortunate to have Dr. Alan R. Dennis joining us today. Alan Dennis is a distinguished professor of information systems at Indiana University's Kelley School of Business, a fellow of the Association for Information Systems, and an Leo Award recipient. I want to hear about that later. His research expertise spans artificial intelligence, team collaboration, and fake news on social media. Dr. Dennis is a highly influential scholar. He's ranked in the top 1% of the world's most influential researchers across all scientific disciplines in 2021. His work has received widespread attention, being reported in the popular press nearly 1,000 times. He also previously served as president of the Association for Information Systems. Alan, you're somebody.
Hey, thank you for the kind comments, Kevin. It's a delight to be here.
So glad to have you. So let's get started. Instead of me read about your extensive background, tell us something about you. Let's hear about you and describe your area of AI research for us, and what kind of questions are you trying to answer in your research?
Sure. I am a technology scholar, which means I focus on computer information systems, but I have been accused of being a psychology professor because, quite frankly, I find people much more interesting than technology. And my research focuses on the intersection of people and technology, how technology influences people, and how people influences technology. And with the coming of AI, technology is becoming much more people-like.
Human-computer interaction, eh?
Yes.
And humans with AI. Lots to talk about here. Well, going a little bit further, let's talk a little bit about the impact of your research. When you think about the type of research you do, if you're out there and you're like, well, what is a person in business doing with AI research? What does it mean and how does it impact society?
Sure. There are many ways that AI is being used to influence everything in our daily lives. So you probably know whenever you go on the internet and see some advertising, it has been served up to you by AI because we know so much about you. So we're trying to customize and deliver exactly the right content that will catch your eye and maybe make you buy something. What people don't realize is it's not just advertising content. You go on social media, you see posts from your friends. Well, that's curated by AI as well. You don't see everything that all your friends say. You see it through an AI filter. It tries to figure out what are you going to be most interested in, what's going to keep you on the platform more. And that is an interesting mix of stuff from your friends and stuff from paid advertisers who are trying to get your eyeballs as well.
See, we're going to talk about that a little bit because, well, on one hand, you can look at that and say, wow, that's great. Look at what is occurring. And as you know, there are people who say, oh my gosh, that's not so good. But let's even talk about this a little bit to kind of set it up. When we think about, as you mentioned, some of the current AI technologies present, what are some of these things that are just around us? Because some people feel like, oh, AI is new, and we know it is not. And it's been gradually becoming more and more part of us. So tell us, where is AI?
Just about anything you want to think about today is AI. One of the interesting things about AI is what we consider to be AI has changed over the last decades. I started doing AI research back in the late 1980s. So what we thought of as AI back then, oh no, we wouldn't call that AI today. And what we thought of AI as 10 years ago, oh no, that was just a fancy technology. So as we move forward, what we think of AI is going to be more on the cutting edge. So I like to say AI is something that is close enough to what a human would do that I'm not quite sure. Was that done by a human or was that done by AI? And as AI gets better and better, and as we start to rely more on AI, what we think of AI and how we use it is going to change.
So it's clearly evolving, and you probably were working in AI in those days where nobody cared about AI. It was like, so what? That's never going to do anything, right? Wasn't that the case back in the day?
Yeah, in fact, they even had a catchy term for it that was invented about 10 years ago. They called the 1980s the AI winter.
Oh, yes.
Because it really wasn't very good and couldn't do very much stuff compared to what we think of today. And people lost interest in it. So it sort of faded out of sight in the 1990s, and it came back behind the scenes in about 2010. And of course, it came into popular consciousness with ChatGPT and generative AI. So we have long been using AI to classify and organize and choose. That's a typical AI task. What changed with ChatGPT is now AI can actually create stuff. It can generate text, generate pictures, generate music, and it is getting surprisingly good at that. We all know, yes, there's AI slop out there that's not very good, but we could also say the same thing of humans. There's a bunch of human slop out there that's not very good either. Yes. So at this point, AI is getting better and better. And as you can probably tell, I'm an optimist about the future. Sure. I think technology is great. I always try and use it. But of course, there's downsides to technology as well.
Well, you and I share that in common because some people accuse me of being just an optimist, and I'm not just an optimist. As I always like to say, we have an and. We understand and do the best we can to try to reduce and minimize the negatives, but that does not mean we just ignore the benefits and opportunities. So that's what it sounds like. You're focused on, let's do this. Let's find the ways that this can be beneficial. Is that kind of in the ballpark how you think?
Yeah, my focus is how can we use the technology to make lives better for individual people and for companies? Because after all, I am in a business school.
That you are. That you are. Well, let me, speaking of business, let's talk about work task and roles. Many people, for obvious reasons, are very concerned and have an interest in this. So what do you see are the changes that will probably occur or likely to occur or could occur in work tasks and roles for the next 1 to 3 years with AI?
This is a question that my students ask me all the time. I'm in a business school, so I am in the business of teaching new entry-level employees. And those are the ones who are going to be most affected. Today, AI can do most of the tasks that an entry-level employee can do. So whenever you see companies cutting back, firing workers, it's usually the low-level, less skilled ones because that's what AI can do. And of course, that creates a major downstream problem because people have to start somewhere. You start as an entry-level employee before you move up and become an expert. Normally, we train students to be entry-level individual contributors. So we teach people how to write programs, how to do accounting, how to write marketing pitches, how to do all kinds of things. Today, AI does a reasonable job at that. Not a great job, not a perfect job, but not a bad job either. So what I'm telling my students is your first role will not be as an individual contributor. Your first role will be as a manager of an AI agent or agents who do a whole bunch of that individual contributor work that your colleagues started at 5 years ago. So we have to think of your role as how do I manage all of these different AI agents, some of which are good, some of which aren't, to try and get to a place where the product is a good product. So we're teaching students how to apply AI, how to be discerning in what AI produces so they can say, yeah, that's good, or I'm not sure that's good, I've got to do some more work here. So the way we coach students to use AI is the same way that we coach managers when they work with entry-level employees, novice employees. And that is, you have to provide a whole bunch of guidance, you have to provide a whole bunch of feedback, and you have to monitor them until you understand they really know what it is that you want to do. Same way if you had a student intern, you wouldn't just go say, go do this task. No, you wouldn't do that. You have to provide a ton of guidance, you have to give examples, you have to help that AI learn what it is that you want. Because if you can't explain it to a novice, AI is not going to really do a very good job because it's not an expert. You could tell an expert, go do X. You can't tell a novice, go do X.
Wow, this takes me back to some of my early training in something called situational leadership, and they talked about development level 1 and the types of things you do with that. Maybe they need to revise situational leadership and include AI at the developmental 1 stage. There's so much, that's kind of a scary way for some people to look at it. In fact, some people, as you just described, the notion of AI agents and managing the AI as an employee, that comes with some concerns that people have. What would you say to folks who have concerns, and how should we address those concerns about, all right, the elephant in the room, will AI take my job?
Short answer is yes. If we think back over the long arc of human history, go back 700 years, 1,000 years, most humans are involved in the production of food because that's just what we have to do to survive. We get some new technology, where do we first put it? Food production. Now suddenly we have a whole bunch of displaced people who don't need to do food production anymore. What happens? Well, now suddenly we get a very thriving industry building things. Chairs, clothes, art, all kinds of things, because now people don't have to build food. And what happens? Well, we get very good at replacing those people with the Industrial Revolution. And this whole cycle continues. We as a species are very good at throwing technology at where most of our people spend their time doing. And today, it's now us. So you'll hear a lot of people talk about the difference between augmenting work and substituting work.
Yes.
I think that's a reasonable way to look at it, but it sort of misses the point. In my opinion, it's a false dichotomy. If you look at what we do, you will see that some of the things I do, AI will substitute for me. So when I no longer have to use a paper map to navigate, is that augmentation or is that substitution? Depends upon whether I'm talking about driving or whether I'm talking about navigating. It's substituting for navigating, but in the grand scheme of things, driving, it's augmenting my driving. So whether we substitute or augment, to me, is missing the point. It's just a matter of focus. Everything we do, AI is going to substitute for some part of the task.
Yes.
And the end result is going to be the same. Whether I substitute or augment, I'm going to need fewer employees simply because fewer people can do the same amount of work. So.
Yeah, that's those. For some people, those are fighting words, but it is a reality that for those of us who've been around a little while, like myself, I mean, we can look around this room that we're in, and we have cameras. Full disclosure to the audience, there's more than one camera in this room, and not that long ago, you would have needed a camera operator specifically. Well, while I don't know the exact technology of these cameras, I guarantee you there's not, let's see, about 8 people sitting behind the desk operating these cameras. So there's an example of where you might have needed people specifically for the role, and now the technology can perform that. But, staying with that a little bit, what are kind of the broader societal implications that people who are listening to this and some of their friends who maybe have not heard about these things need to hear about in terms of what's happening with us when we think about AI as part of our daily lives, our work, our education? What are the broader implications of that?
I wish I could give you a really clear answer to the question, because if I could, I'd be rich.
That's true, too.
I firmly believe that 50 years from now, historians will look back at these times and point to 2022 as the start of the AI age. Same way we look at 1991 as the start of the internet age. That's when everything changed. Now, of course, it took maybe 10 years before the internet really became the internet that we know today. I think AI is going to move a little bit more quickly, but I think 10 years for us humans to adapt and change makes sense. So ask me that question again in 2030, 2035, I'll have a good answer for you.
Well, and for things that you're reading, like I'm reading, 2030 is going to be one of those most interesting convergence and inflection years. But we'll save that conversation for another conversation. And coming in the same vein, let's talk about ethics and privacy and other things related. What should people be concerned about? What should people try to work with? Researchers like yourself, how should we mitigate or work to mitigate the risk of unethical AI or breach of privacy and other things?
Yeah, technology is a tool. It can be used however the humans who created it decide. So we get to decide that future for ourselves, and there will be good actors, and there will, of course, be bad actors. And it will be hard for us to tell them apart. The same way that the internet enabled the criminal across the ocean to suddenly be in your back door or in your bank book, AI is going to enable the same thing. We all think AI needs to behave ethically and morally. But one of the more interesting questions to me is, should we treat AI ethically and morally? Do we have an obligation to treat AI the way that we expect to be treated? And at first glance, you might say, it's a technology, it doesn't care. But again, I'm much more interested in the people side of the equation. You may recall a couple of months ago, Sam Altman at OpenAI was asked, when people say please and thank you to AI, does it cost you money? Just about everybody remembers the first half of his answer. Not everybody's paid attention to the second half. What he said was, yeah, costs us tens of millions of dollars, and it might be worth it.
Oh.
Many people quote the first half, they miss the second half.
Interesting.
So the question is, why did he say, costing them tens of millions of dollars, why would it be worth it? Let me tell you 2 things why I think he might have said that. The first is AI learns from us. If I say please and thank you to the AI I use, it learns, oh, I should behave in a very polite way. If I'm rude to the AI, it learns, oh, he wants me to be rude, so it will be rude. So there's a little bit of karma here. How I treat the AI is how it's going to learn to treat me because it thinks I want to be treated the same way I treat it. So saying please and thank you to the AI, well, there's a little silver lining there that it's going to learn, oh, that's the way I should behave. Just like children pick up on how we talk to them, and they talk to us the same way. Mm-hmm. And the second thing that to me is even more important is whenever I engage in certain patterns of speech, if I say please and thank you to AI, next time I see a human in a customer service role, I'm going to say please and thank you.
Isn't that something?
If I don't say please and thank you to the AI, I'm going to learn I don't need to do that. So next time I see a human, I may forget to be polite.
That's really interesting because now what you're saying is we're learning some appropriate or positive behaviors through our interaction with AI. And in fact, we know we can use it to simulate behaviors. There's a lot there in that response. And I also have to admit, and for those of us who have Apple Intelligence, I think I'm in trouble because I don't think I've been nice to Apple Intelligence.
You can teach it differently. Just start being polite. It'll learn. It's smart.
Yeah, well, for those of you who have Apple Intelligence, you know what I'm talking about. But anyway, we'll move on to one last question to ask you, sir. How can we prepare? How can we engage? And what are some practical steps that just all of us can begin thinking about to engage more deeply with this technology? So bottom line, to coexist with a technology that is only going to improve.
Yeah, I have two suggestions. First, just keep your eyes open, read news reports, read popular press. If you get really excited, read academic research, although that's kind of harder to read.
That's a big ask.
I got to pitch something.
Yes, that's right.
Second thing is using AI is a lot like riding a bicycle. You just got to get up on the bicycle and use it. And is it going to be pretty the first few times? No. Are you going to run into things? Oh, yeah. That's life. So the biggest advice I have is get ChatGPT, get Copilot, get Gemini, get your favorite tool, and just start using it. Because the more you use it, the more you'll understand what it can do and what it can't do, and it will just become a part of how you normally live your life.
For me, that's an excellent summary for this time with you. And I want to thank you very much, Dr. Alan R. Dennis, for the conversation and thoughtful ways that we can interact with this powerful technology that, well, unless you've been asleep, it is transforming how we live, how we work, and how we educate. So thank you again for joining us in this wonderful conversation about AI.
Thank you.
Everyone is talking about AI. At IU, we are too. In this segment of AI and You, we will talk to Dr. David Crandall from the School of Informatics, Computing, and Engineering, Bloomington. I'm your host, Kevin Jones. We're incredibly fortunate to have Dr. David Crandall joining us today. David is Professor of Computer Science in the Luddy School of Informatics, Computing, and Engineering at Indiana University, Bloomington. He leads the IU Computer Vision Lab and is also director of the Luddy Artificial Intelligence Center. Most of his research is on computer vision, which is a field of AI that tries to teach computers how to see the world. Again, thank you for being with us today.
No problem.
So in our little conversation, let's tell the listeners about yourself and what led you to focus on AI research.
Oh, that's a great question. Well, basically, as an undergraduate student, I was looking for summer jobs, and a faculty member was looking for someone to redo his website, Dr. Castori at Penn State. And I'm very grateful for him because I started learning more about his work. As I was updating his website, I started reading some of the papers that he was working on in computer vision, and I was fascinated. And he looked for opportunities to involve me in his research as an undergrad, and then I ended up staying for a master's degree. I wrote a master's thesis, and I just sort of fell in love with the field of computer vision. It's such an interesting area where you get to learn about so many different things, from computer science and statistics and optics and cognitive science and so on. And then I went off and worked at Kodak for a couple of years, Eastman Kodak, which used to be such an important force in digital imaging.
Technological
and did really
change,
great work.
huh?
Yes. But they were the place to do computer vision research at the time. And then I went, I loved research so much I did a PhD and then came here in 2010.
Wow. So you've had experiences that all led up to this revolution in AI, hey?
That's right. Yeah, it was sort of an accident for me. It's more because it's a topic that I'm interested in. It's been so much fun to learn about it over time.
Yeah. Well, can you talk more about maybe this computer vision or that specific area of AI research which you're engaged in?
Sure. Yeah. So as you said, the goal is to get computers to be able to see the world around them. It's something that people can do very naturally. We do it without even thinking. I'm looking at you right now, or reading social signals and so on.
Right.
And that's something that's really been beyond, and really still is beyond, what AI and what computer science can do. And the applications are really important for things like self-driving cars. The car needs to know what's going on in the world around it, or for medical imaging, or for education, transportation. Lots of applications where computers, in order to be part of the world, they need to be able to sense it.
That's interesting. I was in San Francisco not long ago, and I had a chance to ride in a Waymo. And clearly, the Waymo is seeing something. As you're riding it, it's navigating a curve, it's watching pedestrians, and they have the screen is showing you what it is seeing. So this is fascinating work.
It's really interesting. And of course, this gets to a whole nother topic, which is about how so much of the work in AI right now is going on in industry. And so I had an experience to ride in the Waymo for the first time last year, and it was really kind of mind-blowing what is possible there. And we don't, I think, know exactly how Waymo works, because it's being developed in industry, and they rightly have trade secrets and other things. But my understanding is that it uses a really wide variety of sensors, things like LiDAR sensors, radar, a variety of different things. It's not just about computer vision. I think that kind of highlights the difference between what you and I do when we drive and the way that an autonomous car might work. It sort of has extra senses in order to fill in the fact that it's not quite as intelligent as we are.
Yes. Wow. We could spend the whole conversation talking about that, because and for those who've not ridden in one, and I know some people say they're scared to ride in one, but once you ride in one, you go, wow.
It's a little unreal.
It really is. Well, let's even talk about something when we talk about things like Waymos and even the whole concept of your research. Let's talk about how AI has been in news for the last 2 or 3 years. And, let's go back a little bit. As computer science, you've been working with AI for your whole career. Can you walk us through how the field has changed over time?
Yeah, I mean, maybe not a lot of people realize that despite the fact that AI has been so much in the news for the last 2 or 3 years, really AI research has been going on for 70 years. I mean, this is something that people have been working on for a very long time. And I think that's important to remember, because if you think that all of these developments have happened in the last 2 or 3 years, it sounds super scary. But actually, the progress of AI has been really slow over 70 years. And if you look at that history, in the early days, people were looking at very constrained problems, things like programs that could play chess better. And they tended to involve experts writing kind of rules for how the system should be able to play chess well. Maybe about 20 or 30 years ago, there was a really important paradigm shift towards machine learning, where the idea was, instead of sort of writing a set of rules for how the AI should act, one instead presents it with a bunch of training data, and it tries to find the way of solving the problem on its own. Here's a bunch of pictures of cats, here's a bunch of pictures of dogs. You, machine learning algorithm, try to figure out what are the patterns that separate these two things. And then maybe about 10 years ago or 15 years ago is really when the deep learning revolution happened. And so that is where machine learning sort of took the next step towards really large data sets, really huge amounts of computation, really important algorithm and engineering developments also. And then from there, we get to about the last, maybe 3 or 4 years where people have been really focused on one particular kind of deep learning model called a large language model. And that's what ChatGPT and these other systems are, where they've been trained on huge amounts of data from the web, huge amounts of textual data, and they're able, it seems, in some way anyway, to understand people in very natural conversations, and they're much more flexible than like only being able to play chess the way that the systems from before were.
Well, you mentioned the term large language model or LLM. Help us understand some of the differences between this machine learning, LLM, generative AI. We hear these terms and not all of us understand them. In fact, sometimes I forget myself. But tell us what do all these terms mean, and what does it mean for us as users of these tools?
Yeah, well, we could spend a whole hour or two on this.
Take you to your classroom.
Exactly. Huh? Yeah, well, you're welcome to stop by anytime. I'm happy to present a lecture. But I think, so as I said, machine learning is about really learning from data. And that's sort of a very key difference from the way like computer programs other kinds of computer programs are written, where instead one sort of writes a set of rules for them to carry out. There's a lot of good things about that because it can make these programs much more flexible. It's no longer sort of bound to just what the original creator told it that it had to do and what way it can do it. It's also a little bit dangerous in the sense that it can learn patterns in data that maybe we don't want it to learn. And this is where issues with failures and bias and other things can pop up and cause failures in various ways. Large language models, like we mentioned, is like one particular kind of machine learning model that's been trained on huge amounts of data, just unthinkable amounts of data, trillions and trillions of words.
Here we're running out of data.
We're basically trained on all the data that we have. And really at their core, those large language models are doing something very simple. They're always trying to just predict what is the next word. Kind of interesting. As we're going around the world, as a human being right now, I'm doing a lot of prediction right now. I'm trying to predict what you're going to ask next so I can have things in my my head ready to go. I'm trying to read social signals to see if you're about to interrupt me because I'm rambling on too long or whatever, right? And these large language models, that's all they're doing. They have huge amounts of text that they're trained on, and they're always just trying to figure out what is the next word that would make sense. And the kind of amazing thing is that because they're so large with so much computation, with so much data that they've been trained on, they're actually able to do seemingly very amazing things. No longer just predicting the next word like a little grammar checker, but instead they can answer questions, they can write documents, they can recognize things in images. It's really kind of amazing how such a simple idea has powered something that seems so powerful.
Yes, and so powerful it is. In fact, that leads me to another question. As we think about society more broadly, and there are currently many AI technologies already present. We've already spoke of one, being Waymo as an example. What are some of those technologies that we don't even realize are around us and operating? Because we talk a lot about what's coming, but what's happening today when we think about the various technologies, AI, that is here and present?
So it's a very good question, and it's partially depends on how you define what AI is, and we could spend a lot of time on that also. But I mean, I think if we define AI to be something that can sort of learn from data that it's seen in the past, that's flexible to new situations, that somehow does things that seems to require some degree of intelligence, more than just adding numbers together or something like that, which is what computers have been good at for a very long time. I mean, then I think we all use AI all the time without maybe even realizing it. When we go to websites like Facebook and other social media sites, they are trying to predict what we are interested in. So they're recommending certain, stories in our feed. They're very importantly for them recommending ads that we are likely to click on. And that is based on both our history and history of other people. And, they're very good at doing that, for better or for worse. You mentioned Waymo, but I think even those of us who don't have self-driving cars by any means, a lot of cars these days have intelligent features built in, just things like making sure you don't drift from the lane of travel or that you don't get too close to the car in front of you. I think you can imagine that being a form of AI also. Or maybe just one more example, I think a lot of the technology on our smartphones these days uses AI. So something I find very helpful, and it relates directly to my research, is I have 10,000 photos on my phone. I'm always trying to find things. I can never quite find what I'm looking for. Well, these days you can actually type things in like, picture of bird and my mother or whatever, and it would actually be able to do something reasonable there. And I think that's like a concrete example of something, in my field, computer vision, that people just sort of can just use right now.
Yeah, we don't even think about that. And that's one of the interesting parts about AI. We didn't talk about it, but it was here and it was operating. And then came the infamous generative AI, or OpenAI's ChatGPT, which seemed to wake us all up. And so thinking about that and AI technologies over the horizon, what do you believe will significantly impact work and our personal lives over the next 1 to 3 years?
That is a great question. I don't know if I know the answer. It's
well, if you have the answer, I don't think you'll be here too long. That's for sure. Somebody will transport you around the world every day to answer the question. But give it a shot.
I think right now, the state of AI right now is very confusing. It's confusing even for us who work on it, underneath the hood. Because some things that seem unbelievably difficult seem to be working so well. Like ChatGPT, I'm often impressed by what complicated question I can give it and what an amazing answer it can give me. Yes. And yet other things, it just completely falls on its face and fails. I asked it a simple math question, just happened to be yesterday. It got it totally wrong, told me total nonsense number. And so I think what we're doing right now as a society is figuring out, like, where is this useful and where is it not useful? And for better or for worse, as happens with any new technology in our society, there's lots of voices on lots of extreme ends of that. There's people trying to sell you things who are trying to, say how great the technology is. Others are sort of doomsayers. And, the truth is somewhere in between. And I think this is something that we're all navigating together. So I don't know about the next 1 to 3 years. But, I think in the long term, I think, as we sort of navigate new technologies, I think exciting things on the horizon are things like robotics. Robotics is something that people have been working on for 70 or 80 years also. I think it's a really, really difficult problem. Despite AI that can, outplay every human who has ever lived in chess, there's no AI on the planet that can do what it took for me to get here this morning, which was literally just waking out of bed, brushing my teeth, walking down the steps, walking into campus, finding the right room, opening the doors. Like, all of that is completely beyond what current AI can do. And I think, a world where there's more robots, where AI is sort of living among us in sort of an embodied way, well, there's a lot of opportunities for that. There's a lot of challenges. And so I think, as we sort of look beyond just ChatGPT AI being in this little web browser screen, and we think about what happens when it's really part of the physical world around us, well, that's going to be a lot of the conversation for the next decade, say.
Yes. We talk a lot about human-computer interaction, or humans and AI collaborating with AI. And it seems as that is happening whether we are prepared for it or not, which brings me to maybe the last question for us. How can we be more prepared and engaged, and what are some practical steps we can take to engage more deeply with AI, considering the fact that it is present, it's going to continue to be present, and it will take different forms as we go forward?
So I have to say, I'm a computer scientist who's worked in AI for 30 years. But the more I work in it, the more I'm impressed by people. People are so amazing. I mean, all of us learned language. We learned to see the world around us. We learned to do things like driving and so on. And we didn't need to download the entire web of trillions of documents. We didn't need gigantic electrical subsystem nuclear power plants powering our supercomputers. We just did this powered on applesauce and sandwiches and stuff like that. And
Yes.
and so I think you're absolutely right. I think the future is about human AI interaction. It's not about AI replacing us. I don't even think that's possible. I don't want that to happen. So I think the key challenge both for us on the technology side and for folks who, on social science and other kinds of side, is to think about how we build systems that can work together better than either of us can do individually. And I think for going back to the question about what can people do, I think there's a couple of answers to that. I think one is if you haven't tried ChatGPT or one of these systems, go try it. It costs nothing to try. You can ask it to do interesting things, see what happens. Sometimes it will fail, sometimes it will succeed, and you'll learn something from that. But as much as things are changing, I also think things stay the same. I think the sort of fundamental skills that are important before and now will still be important in the future. Things like critical thinking, problem solving, creativity, all of the important things that allow us to live in a society, they're not going to go away. And if anything, critical thinking and understanding the past and all that sort of thing is going to become even more important as deep fake and other kinds of stuff start flooding our world. So, I guess I would say those two things, try to explore the technology, learn about it and so on, but also remember that all of these important skills from the past will still serve us well now.
Well, that's a great way to close our program, is that the people are still important and will be important even as the technology evolves. Well, Dr. David Crandall, thank you so much for taking some time to come and talk with us about AI on our program, AI and You. Thank you.
Thank you.
You've been listening to State of Inquiry from IPM.org, recorded at the Indiana Public Media Met Studio on the campus of Indiana University. This has been episode 3 of 4 of AI and You, Navigating the New Frontier, with guest host Dr. Kevin Jones. The production team for this episode of State of Inquiry includes Scott Carmichael, Eddie Stewart, and Nate Wrigley. The director of content at Indiana Public Media is Eric Bolstridge. We welcome your feedback and ideas. Reach us at ipm.org. To support this podcast and the mission of Indiana Public Media, visit ipm.org/donate. And find more podcasts from Indiana Public Media by visiting ipm.org. Thanks for listening.